Hey guys, it's Meg and welcome back to my YouTube channel. Today I'm going to be setting up my bullet journal ready for November, and let's just get into it. So for November, I'm going to do something a little bit different, and I'm going to be using coloured pencils. I usually use coloured pens, mainly Tombow brush pens and Crayola Super Tips, but because of the theme, which you will see in a minute, I just thought pencils would work better, and I wanted to just vary it up. These are the pencils I'll be using. I've had them for years, so the box is all a bit messy, and some of the pencils are getting quite short, but they're the Faber-Castell set of 60, I believe, and I will link them down below in my Amazon storefront if you want to get them for yourself. But let's just get straight into the cover page. So I'm going to be using the smaller fine liners from my set, mainly 0.05 for this spread because I want it to be quite delicate lines and because I'm using the coloured pencils. It's all going to be a softer look that I'm going for, and my November bullet journal theme that you will have seen from the thumbnail is pretty much coziness. I don't have a specific title for the theme, but it's very much inspired by Hygge, which is a Danish word or principle that loosely translates to coziness. From videos I've seen, people also explain that it describes the feeling of when you're cozy, and I just thought that was the perfect vibe for this November theme. So when I was planning this theme, I was on Pinterest looking up loads of cozy inspiration, looking at some of the Hygge design styles, as well as other themes that I thought tied into it really nicely, like scarves and blankets, also a bit of a coffee shop kind of vibe. So that is the aesthetic that I'm going for with these spreads, and I'm super happy with how it turned out. So I wanted the cover page to be a bit of a double page spread, as I've not done one of those in a while, and on the left hand side I'm drawing a cozy window scene. I've got some curtains down the sides, and then on the windowsill I've got some books and two little candles. I'm then writing "Stay Cozy" underneath in my favourite bouncy hand lettering, which I thought would fit perfectly with the theme. And I'm then creating a gold border just around the edge with rounded corners using a gel pen to give it a little bit of sparkle. Then I'm rubbing out the pencil and moving over to the right hand page. So this page is part of the cover page. Like I said, I'm going for more of a double page spread. Here I'm writing November in kind of faux calligraphy hand lettering, and this has been inspired by something I found on Pinterest. Again, it was such a nice lettering that I really wanted to incorporate that design. I had planned for this page to have a slight cutout around the letters as they'd done on this Pinterest picture that I'd seen, but I then went and drew out my mood tracker on the back of the page and forgot I would be cutting it, so had to kind of abort mission on that one. But I still wanted to go with this lettering because I just loved how it looked, and I thought I could then use the pencils to colour in the letters and create a nice ombre effect. I then completed the gold border, which wasn't as easy as you might expect going over the middle of the page, but I thought this would help make the entire cover page look like a page as a whole. Plus then I felt the gold border kind of gave it the look I was going for by cutting the page. By them going over the border, I thought this kind of gave the same effect. So now it's time to grab our coloured pencils and start colouring in. I'm starting off with the curtains, and I'm using this pale beige colour, and the whole colour palette that I'm going to be using will be a very warm, cosy, full colour palette. Lots of beiges, dark yellows, browns, burnt oranges, rusty reds, all of that good stuff, which should really help create that cosy look that I'm going for. I have to say, using coloured pencils was such a throwback. I've not done a coloured pencil theme since my July watermelons last year, so it was really nice to be working with a different medium again. I felt a little bit out of my comfort zone as it isn't something I use very often, so I'm hoping that just by using something different, trying it out, I'll slowly improve my colouring and blending with coloured pencils and just have a bit of fun trying something different. Part of what I really love with using coloured pencils is the control you can get with the light and shade and creating shadows and highlights. So I was really trying to do that with my colouring of the curtains and on the wood, making it slightly darker around the books where it would be in shadow because there's something on top of them, and then slightly lighter around the candles where the flames from the candle are going to create some light. I also then added a few scratchy marks with the pencils into the wood to try and make it look a bit more like wood rather than just a block of brown colour. And I used the same yellow pencil as I used for the flame of the candle to create a really subtle glow to make it look as real as possible. I then coloured in the books using colours from my colour palette, using that balancing technique that I always talk about, and then I started colouring in the window. I was a little bit nervous about this because I didn't want to ruin what I'd already done, but I wanted to make it look like it was raining outside to really add to that coziness of being indoors on a rainy day. So I just really lightly used a blue pencil in a diagonal action to create the look of rain going diagonally across the window, and then I used a slightly darker blue to create larger marks to represent the raindrops going on the window. Then I used the same gold gel pen as I'd used for the border to colour in the little stars and give it that bit of sparkle, and then I moved on to the lettering. I wanted to create an ombre look to the letters, both on the letters themselves individually and on all the letters as a whole, going from dark at the top to lighter at the bottom. So I started by applying a really light layer of whichever colour I would be using for that letter, and then I went over the top, adding more pressure so that it would create a darker and more saturated colour. I think applying the lighter layer first makes it a lot easier to blend the two colours together, so if you're wanting to try out some ombre lettering as well using coloured pencils, I would definitely recommend giving that a go. And then, as I mentioned, I was intending to cut this edge of the paper around where the letters were, but because I've messed that up and drawn on the back of the paper, I decided to fill this bit of space with some autumn leaves, and I think it works really well, so I'm super happy with the final look. Then, as usual, just to bring the page to life a little bit, I grabbed my trusty white gel pen, which is the Uniball Broad Signo in white. It wasn't as easy going on top of pencil because the ink didn't seem to cling to the paper as easily, but I still like to include it to give some highlights both on the letters and on the window panes. And that is it for the cover page. Now let's move on to the mood tracker. So I wanted to be a little bit creative with my mood tracker this month. So to be in keeping with my theme, I thought what is more cozy than an evening reading a book next to a warm fire. So that is the inspiration behind the design on this page. So I'm setting up a little fireplace doodle down in the bottom corner, and then I'm going to have a table and lots of shelves with books on. I'm going to be using the books and numbering them so that I can use those as the mood tracker. I will number them all 1 to 30, which I highly recommend numbering your mood tracker so you don't get confused and have to count them up every time. But yeah, so the books on the shelf are going to be the mood tracker part. And then I've got a little table down in the bottom left with a few books stacked on it, which I will colour in as my mood tracker key. I really love trying to find creative ways to design new mood trackers and incorporate the key into the page without it standing out too much. And I really love how these books tied in, working as the key but also working as part of the design. Then I grabbed my coloured pencils again and started colouring in the wooden shelves, using the same technique as before, starting with a lighter layer and then going over with a darker brown, adding in some marks again to try and make it look more like wood. But now you can enjoy some aesthetic colouring as I fill in this spread, or feel free to skip to the time on the screen when I'll be talking you through the next page. So that is the mood tracker all complete. Now let's move on to the final page. So I wanted to include a slightly different page than normal, as on my Pinterest search I'd found somebody had created a coffee shop playlist and I thought that would just fit perfectly here. I'm someone who's very much into music and I've always got Spotify playlists on the go, so I thought it could be really fun to fit in a playlist page, plus it gave me extra space to do some more cozy doodles. So I will be filling this page in as I go through the month, whenever a song comes up that I think would just fit perfectly or kind of becomes my November soundtrack. That's what I'll be filling in on these lines. And then on the right hand part of this page, this was where, had I been able to cut the edge of the cover page, you would have seen this section from the cover page, if that makes sense. But it doesn't really matter, it's still cute to include. But I wanted to include a definition of Hygge for anyone who doesn't know, also to remind myself, plus it just fits in aesthetically, so I wanted to have it in there. And I also thought it would be perfect to add a little mini calendar. I always like to have these if possible, if I've not got a larger calendar page, because I like to just be able to see which dates are going to fall on which days. Helps me with planning content and just work related stuff. And then down in the bottom right, I had a bit of space left for my final cute little doodle. So I've got some books stacked up and leaning against each other. Then we've got a roll of a kind of autumnal blanket, so I'm going to make that checked tartan kind of look. And then we've got a kettle with some steam coming out, which I just thought ties in the whole cozy look of this mood tracker coffee shop playlist page, and of course really fits in with the theme. And now for my final bit of colouring in. I have to say I've really enjoyed using the pencil, so if you're thinking of trying it out, I would definitely recommend. Just make sure to start lighter and then add pressure and get darker as you're happy with how it looks. And always try and colour in the same sort of direction so you don't get too scratchy. But here I'm just colouring in the little playlist cover that I've got, which is a coffee cup and a book from above. And I'm just using all the colours that I've used throughout the theme. I find this is one of the things that makes the theme look as tied together as it does, because I always try to use the same colour palette throughout. I don't introduce any new random colours on the last page, for example, so it's all cohesive and it gives it a very put together and planned out look. But the way I select the colours is just kind of random, so for the books, for example, I'm just picking out colours that I've used, bringing in the red that I've used in the bricks on the fireplace, and then I used the pale beige, the yellow from the fire, the lighter rustier brown and the red colour to create the tartan check print on the little rolled up blanket. For this you just want to start off by doing a very light background colour and then start drawing lines downwards or side to side depending on which direction you're starting off with, and just build the colours slowly so that you don't overdo it. It's also ideal if you can try to create the lines not quite straight so that they would bend where the blanket folds. Then I'm just doing the final details, so some shadows where it's appropriate, doing the gold gel pen on the stars and the little playlist button, and highlighting the days of the week for the mini calendar, and that is pretty much it for my November setup. So that is it for my November bullet journal setup. I am loving the cozy, Hygge, rainy day in a coffee shop vibe, and I hope you guys love it as much as I do. Thank you all so much for your continued support and watching my videos. Special thanks goes to this week's subscriber shoutout Shreya. Thank you so much for always posting lovely comments on my videos, I really appreciate it. But thanks again for watching. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe and hit the notification bell if you want to be notified when I next upload, and I'll see you in the next one.